from downtown Salt Lake City, this is 2 News at 4.
It's grim news, and it's discouraging.
Utah smashes its daily coronavirus record, and officials are warning the numbers could get even worse.
The nation watches and waits as the cliffhanger election race moves toward a pivotal moment in those battleground states.
And we may not have final presidential results just yet, but we've learned a lot so far. We'll show you what's changed and what's still to come.
We're beginning with breaking news at 4 on the race in Utah's 4th district. GOP candidate Burgess Owens has now taken the lead over incumbent Ben McAdams.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and break down those numbers for you. Taking a look at numbers that just came in from Utah County, Republican Burgess Owens now has 48.1% of the vote to Ben McAdams' 47.15% of the vote. So we're less than 1 percentage point difference. When you break down the vote total, it's about 2,400 votes where Republican Burgess Owens is now ahead. If you remember, at this exact same time yesterday when a big batch of numbers came in, Congressman Ben McAdams was up about 2,600 votes at the time. So we've seen almost a exact reversal of the number of votes that are out there. Again, Burgess Owens has a slight less than 1 percentage point lead. This is the first time that he has led in this race. The bulk of the numbers that have come in today so far to put him up into the lead have come from Utah County, where he has a very strong support right there. We are expecting some more numbers coming from Salt Lake County in the next hour or so, so we will definitely continue to keep a very close eye in the 4th congressional district.
We want to talk about the coronavirus now. Utah shattered its daily COVID case count record by hundreds of cases today. Here's a look at those numbers. We reported 2,807 new infections today, so just shy of 3,000. The rolling 7-day average for positive tests is now 1,943 per day, and that's a 19.5% infection rate. 7 new deaths, they were also reported. We want to go live to Haley Krumblholm now. Now, Haley, you heard from Governor Gary Herbert today about why these might not be the highest numbers that we'll see.
Yeah, Governor Herbert said that is a major concern, and he says he's also growing concerned that people aren't fully grasping how high these numbers are getting. He says he's worried that when people hear these case counts, their eyes are just glazing over. Dr. Angela Dunn also spoke today. She says in addition to having the highest daily case count today, we also saw there are now 389 people hospitalized in the state due to COVID-19. That is also our highest single-day count to date. Governor Herbert says he has been having emergency meetings over the last 2 days. That's to discuss potentially refining some of the state's recommendations. Herbert says the case numbers could get even higher.
Unfortunately, the news of these higher numbers are not surprising. And if projections that we have coming out of our Department of Health are correct, we're going to see higher numbers in the upcoming days and weeks.
Now, when asked if there would be any added enforcement of mask mandates, Governor Herbert said transmission seems to be happening among small groups of family or friends, and how to enforce mask wearing in homes and backyards is problematic. And he says they're depending on people doing the right thing. Now, coming up at 5, I'll tell you when we could start to see gatherings from Halloween weekend, so Saturday start to have an impact on our daily case rates. That's coming up at 5 o'clock. In West Valley City, Haley Krumblholm, 2 News.
Okay, thank you so much, Haley. Millard County has now moved from a high transmission area to moderate. They're seeing 292 new cases per 1,000, and they have a 12.5% positivity rate. 22 counties are high transmission areas, 2 are moderate, and 5 are low.
Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall tweeted a little bit ago that a reminder about gathering, saying, quote, "If you gather socially with anyone outside of your household, 10 people is the limit, and every person should be masked. Do it for your health, the health of your friends and family, and for our healthcare workers." Still much more coverage ahead. Later in this hour, Skyline High moves to the online learning for 2 weeks because of the pandemic, because of coronavirus cases there. We're going to speak to the school district spokesperson. That's coming up at 4:30 about the situation there.
In the race for president, here is a look at the latest electoral map. This is according to the Associated Press. Ballot counting continues in a handful of key states right now, like Nevada, like Pennsylvania. Georgia has become an unexpected question mark for President Trump. The AP is reporting that the state is separated by less than 10,000 votes. So Trump still leads there, but around 9,500 votes. Now, the last time Georgia voted blue in a presidential election was back in 1992.
Yeah, it certainly has been a while, and as vote counters work around the clock, so too are protesters. We see demonstrators and demonstrations underway near the White House and cities across the country. Without citing evidence, some Trump supporters say they believe what the president has told them, that there were major problems with voting and the ballot counting. Meanwhile, Joe Biden supporters are demanding that every vote be counted.
The president's alluded to maybe throwing out mail-in ballots or absentee ballots, and I'm here today to just make it clear that I don't think that should happen.
We're not trying to break in. We just like to watch you count the ballots.
Election officials across the country have repeatedly said vote counting is continuing as expected, and there have been no reports whatsoever of any fraud. Now, we do have team coverage for you this afternoon. Atra El-Nashar is following Joe Biden's campaign.
But first, we start with Scott Thuman following the Trump's campaign's legal complaints over what ballots should be counted or not. And Scott, we're learning about the political makeup of our country.
Yeah, we are, as we take a closer look. And by the way, you referenced the president and his argument today, and that tweet stopped the count. But this is the map of where we're still filling in and where they are still counting, including Alaska, by the way, off the map there, but leans heavily Trump. These are the states where there are mail-in ballots, absentee ballots still arriving in some cases, and they take longer to process, as we've discussed. But while we're in this holding pattern, it's given us an opportunity to break down the numbers a little bit more, and we've learned quite a bit. Much of America hoped it wouldn't be close, that one side would easily outshine the other, but America may be more split down the middle than some, including pollsters, believed. Yes, Joe Biden appears very much in the electoral driver's seat, but President Trump has pulled in more than 68 million votes, at least 5 million more than he did in 2016, and now banking on legal challenges, claiming non-residents voted in Nevada. No matter the side of the aisle or street in this case, this election affirmed America has a split identity. In the House, Democrats still do hold a majority and broke more glass ceilings.
I take pride in becoming the first openly LGBTQ elected official from New York City.
But the scales didn't tip as far as some predicted. Republicans appear to be gaining ground. By midday Thursday, the difference 208 to 190. In the Senate, a more level playing field. Democrats flipped key seats in Colorado and Arizona, but unable to unseat some running more pro-Trump campaigns, like Lindsey Graham in South Carolina or Joni Ernst in Iowa.
People on both sides feel divided. Emotions and those wounds are very, very raw.
The count Wednesday afternoon, dead even at 48, with 4 more Republicans trying desperately to hold on to their jobs and control of the upper chamber. And 2 of those races and seats are right here in Georgia, where at least one of them is definitively headed for a runoff. Looks like the other one probably is as well. And those would take place on January 5th, which means at least there, the 2020 election looks a lot more like 2021. Jim and Mallory?
It just keeps getting more and more bizarre. Yeah. All right, Scott Thuman, thank you very much. Now, the stage is set in Wilmington, Delaware at Biden headquarters as the campaign urges patience while ballots are still being counted.
Atra El-Nashar has more on how the Biden campaign feels that things are actually going tonight.
Today, the Biden campaign feels very confident victory is well within their reach. It's still anyone's guess when the final results will be clear, but they believe when that moment comes, it will be one of celebration.
Our data shows that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States.
It's Election Day, day 3. Biden campaign manager Jen O'Malley Dillon says they have faith in densely populated areas of Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, giving them more opportunities to win than the Trump campaign.
That counting is going to continue to show our path to victory.
We're going to win Pennsylvania.
As the Trump campaign mounts more and more legal challenges, Biden campaign advisor Bob Bauer describes their efforts with words like political theater, silly, and doomed to fail.
The lawsuits are meritless, They're intended to give the Trump campaign the opportunity to argue that the vote count should stop. It is not going to stop.
Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who was once thought to be in the running to be Biden's running mate, gives insight on how the candidate is feeling.
He, of course, has not won yet. He recognizes that. He's a humble person, but he's optimistic, and as am I. And I think I'm hopeful that we can start that next chapter in this country because it's so sorely needed.
Now, a sign that Biden is looking ahead to leading the country, we're learning that he and running mate Kamala Harris got a briefing earlier today about COVID-19 from public health officials and another briefing on the economy, which they've been getting throughout the campaign. Now, when or if Biden reaches 270 electoral college votes, he'll appear on the stage behind me here just outside the Chase Center. We've seen fireworks that are set up and ready to go. Now, the campaign hopes that moment comes tonight, but they're well aware that they may have to wait another day. Reporting in Wilmington, Delaware, I'm Atrell Nashar.
Lots of pieces to the puzzle. Okay, back here in Utah, the transition in the governor's office begins. Governor-elect Cox today announced 2 key posts. Brian Malahy is on the story. And Brian, some familiar names from state government and the media.
Yeah, that's right. One of them, one of the appointees, held a top newspaper position. The other was director of a major state agency.
I am thrilled to announce that I will be appointing John Pierpont as my Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer for the state of Utah. And the second announcement I will be making today, as far as team members that will be joining us in January, Jennifer Napier Pierce as a Senior Advisor and Director of Communications.
John Pierpont led the Utah Department of Workforce Services. Jennifer Napier Pierce has been editor of the Salt Lake Tribune. Execs from Merit Medical and Larry H. Miller Companies have also been tabbed to lead the transition. Volunteer advisors also announced today, including former 4th District Congresswoman Mia Love. And speaking of the 4th District race that is still undecided, 2 people may have big sway in who wins that contest, and their names are not Burgess Owens and Ben McAdams. Wait till you see and hear coming up on 2 News at 5. Brian Malahy in South Jordan.
Very interesting. All right, thanks so much, Brian. You can stay with 2 News for continued election coverage, and of course there is still much more ahead here on 2 News at 4. But what we all want to talk about right now, how gorgeous this weather is. Sterling, when I came in, I said, did we break a record? Did we get warm enough?
No, we didn't, but we are 1 degree away from tying the record for the date. We are at 74 now. That just updated, but it still says 73 on the map, but it's 74 out there right now. 64 in Vernal, 63 in Rock Springs. Beautiful weather across the state. It's a little bit of valley haze across the northern part of the state. This storm, as we've been talking about the last couple of days, is going to dive south along the west coast. I'll show you where it's headed and what we expect it to do in Utah coming up in my full forecast. But it does look like we've got about a 70% chance of rain and snow Saturday and Sunday. That decreases to 10% by Tuesday. I'll show you the timing and the direction of everything coming up in my full forecast.
Well, some wild images from a crash at a coving test site today. We'll show you what went wrong and how long this University of Utah Health location will be closed for testing.
In many parts of the world, this is now becoming a prescription.
Many Americans coping with election anxiety. We'll tell you the one thing experts suggest that can lower heart rate and blood pressure. Stay with us.